Ravens flock. The news just came out about several different awards and the finalists for those awards. One award that kind of caught my attention was the Comeback Player of the Year award, and in my opinion, it was kind of disappointing. I feel like Jadeveon Clowney got completely snubbed from this list. So the finalists for the Comeback Player of the Year award are Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco, Matthew Stafford, Tua Tagavalioa, and Damar Hamlin. Now, that list isn't terrible, but like Damar Hamlin being on that list that's completely ridiculous. Now, for the people that forgot, Damar Hamlin last season, he looked as if he was going to die on the field. Like, he collapsed during the Bills versus Bengals game. And obviously, I'm happy he survived from what happened last year, but putting him in the running for Comeback Player of the Year just because he didn't die, like, that's crazy to me. Like, he played like legit 20 snaps all year. Like, so far, the main thing that he did this year that was even notable wasn't really even a good thing. It was just like last week in that divisional round game against the Chiefs, the Bills made a terrible decision to use him for like a fake punt. And that's legitimately like the most notable thing he did all year. So I don't understand the logic in making Damar Hamlin a finalist. Like, it truly doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is. Baker Mayfield being on the list actually does make sense, to be fair to Baker. Like, he went through a lot the past couple years. He bounced around to, like, I think 4 different teams or whatever. And I do think the Browns did him dirty, to be honest with you. Like, to tell the public and to tell him privately that you wanted to keep him and then you tossed him out the window to go sign Deshaun Watson, of all people, to the biggest deal ever. Like, that's kind of wild. And he obviously bounced around to like the Panthers and Rams. And this was a year where Baker's back was against the wall. If he didn't make it work in Tampa, his career as a starter was pretty much over. Like, there's no way he would have been able to be a starter anywhere else. So for him to come out and have a career year, he threw for 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns. The Buccaneers won the NFC South. And then on top of that, he won a playoff game, and then he played another competitive game against the Lions. So whether the Buccaneers keep him or not, he's definitely going to get a deal somewhere. So I can respect that pick. I can respect him being a finalist. Joe Flacco being a finalist on this list, I don't think it's truly deserved. I know a lot of Ravens fans are going to disagree because so many Ravens fans love Joe, but I don't really think he should be on the list for Comeback Player of the Year. What he did the past couple of weeks to end the season for the Browns, it was cool. Like, it's a cool story. But at the same time, it's like, outside of him being relevant in the mainstream again, like, he didn't do, at least in my eyes, if somebody's like in running for Comeback Player of the Year, you would imagine it would be somebody whose career was dead in the water or close to being over, but they managed to just have a career year. Like, this wasn't really a career year for Joe. It was a nice story, but I mean, he threw 13 touchdowns, and then he also threw 8 interceptions. And then even in the wild card game, he threw 2. I think he had 2 touchdowns in that game, but then he also threw 2 back-to-back pick sixes. So ultimately, he still ended up playing like the same old Joe Flacco, but because the Browns were such a stacked team this year and they were so talented, he was able to help them stay afloat, really. You know, like, and then on top of that, it wasn't even just Joe. Like, they had 4 different quarterbacks in Cleveland, and they still were able to win like 11 games. Like, they still had a great year. Like, if they gave Kevin Stefanski Coach of the Year, that would actually make sense, low key. I had to put my bias aside. Like, they made that work no matter what. But putting Joe Flacco in Comeback Player of the Year conversation for that, I don't really think it makes sense. He did have some good moments, obviously. Like, I think he had like 5 straight games of like 300 plus yards. So like, that's cool, but I don't think he should have been a finalist over Jadeveon Clowney. Matt Stafford, he had a pretty solid year, especially coming off of the Rams had a down year. Like he was dealing with injuries, so he had a pretty decent year. And the Rams, they really got hot towards the end of the year, but I still don't think him being put as a finalist over Jadeveon Clowney makes any sense. Tua actually does make a little bit of sense. Like regardless of if you think that Tyreek and the rest of the team carries Tua or not, Tua did come off of having a really good year. Like he put up a lot of numbers. Like he had the most passing yards in the league. And I was not expecting Tua to really come back at all, to be honest with you. With all the concussions he caught last year, and then on top of that, that infamous moment where he was on the ground and his hands, the concussion was so bad that his hands started throwing up like those weird signs and stuff. Like I thought he was never gonna play football again. But so to see him come back and do that, like that was actually something that would make sense to put him in the running for comeback player of the year. But in general, I still think Jadeveon Clowney should have been a finalist and should have won this and should win this award, even though it looks like nobody voted for him. But when you look at Jadeveon's story, to me, like it makes more sense to give him that title. Like he was a former number one pick who had a decent but underwhelming career. He had a few good years where he had around like 9 sacks, but still he was bouncing around from team to team. So I don't think he's ever made the Pro Bowl. Like he's never really been a household name really, other than when he was the number one pick. He fell off the radar for most, teams and fans for the past several years. And then on top of that, because of rumors last year, like when he was with Cleveland, there were rumors that he stopped trying to play. Like he stopped playing hard because he realized the Browns weren't in playoff contention. So, and then on top of that, there were more rumors saying that he was kind of resentful that the Browns' defensive scheme was centered around Myles Garrett. Like you combining all of that, like that was kind of really throwing his reputation down the toilet. So for him to actually be able to come back, come play for the Ravens when his career and his reputation look dead in the water, and then he comes to Baltimore and actually has a career year where he ties his career high in sacks. He has 9.5 sacks. He's getting pressure every single week, even in the playoffs. Like he's looking like he's literally having a rejuvenation moment in his career where he's actually a threat again. And it's not just him, obviously. Kyle Van Noy's also having a great comeback year. But in general, to me, I would still give it to Jadeveon. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you think Jadeveon deserved comeback player of the year? Do you think he was snubbed? And do you think Damar Hamlin should be a finalist in this award? And is there anybody else in the NFL who you think should be in the running but just got overlooked too?